It is the Doomsday Podcast. Matt Mosley, Ed Werder, and the Cowboys coming off yet another loss to the 49ers. This one 30-24. 49ers could have tacked one on late, and they wisely kept the clock going there. And Ed, this is I guess for a little while, Cowboys were in the lead at the half. So, but I guess the overall thing is, obviously they've had the playoff losses in San Francisco. They've had the regular season losses. And we'll talk about Dak's night. But this is a team that we wondered, okay, what will they do against another team that had some players out, have some, really good players injured and everything right now. And Ed, same old from the Cowboys, the way it ends up. And I would say it's yet another one of what I call kind of the fake comebacks, right? It's like, oh, wow, they're down 27-10. It's time to play. It's time to, oh my gosh, watch this huge comeback. And it's, again, part of the thing is don't get yourself in that kind of a hole. But now, Ed, especially given what's happening in the division with the Eagles and the Commanders, Cowboys find themselves in a really bad spot here.
Well, they're 3-4 for the first time since 2018, as far as having a healthy Dak Prescott. And in 2018, obviously, they made the trade for Amari Cooper and were able to turn their season around. But I don't have any sense that Jerry Jones is going to do anything dramatic in the next week before the trading deadline to improve this roster. Mike McCarthy and Dak Prescott have lost 4 consecutive games to Kyle Shanahan and whoever the 49er quarterback at the moment seems to be. They've really not been terribly competitive. They haven't scored a lot of points. Tonight was really a high in that regard, but they blew a halftime lead. They had a chance on their final possession offensively to come back and take the lead and maybe win the game late, but they're just not capable of that kind of thing. And I spent a lot of time at the Star this week during their bye week and heard a lot of guys like Dak and Jordan Lewis who have publicly complained about this team's poor practice habits. And they were saying there was a lot of energy at practice and the right amount of intensity. Mike McCarthy was talking about how they spent a lot of extra time in their padded practices working on the running game and doing a lot of work as in groups, like the offensive line, all working together, taking practice reps rather than doing, one-on-one type stuff. And the receivers and tight ends, the same thing. And yet they come out and play almost the same game we've seen from this team every week, at least offensively. Mike Zimmer, the defense, have a legitimate excuse here for not being able to contribute in the way that they were originally expected. You can't play without pass rushers and you can't play without corners. And Mike Zimmer's down a couple of corners and hasn't had Deron Bland all year, doesn't have Micah Parsons, doesn't have DeMarcus Lawrence. And so, they're not going to be very good on defense. But this team and this owner invested all of the money on the offense. And it was in a game like this, again, that the offense needed to carry the team. And instead, they did just the opposite. Dak Prescott throwing multiple interceptions for the 3rd straight game, the first time in his 9-year career that he's in that predicament.
All right. And Ed, you sound great. And that new lav mic you have, it's kind of fuzzy down there. It appears and you're showing a little bit of chest hair there, which we appreciate. Our audience loves. But good lav mic there. Thank you, Rogue Media Network, for that. But we just continue to upgrade our game. Ed, we'll get into
unlike the team we cover.
What's that?
Unlike the team we cover, we're upgrading our game.
That's right. They rarely upgrade, although, man, I don't know. You think Tours, will this loss help or hurt the Tours this week?
I didn't notice any drop-off in the Tours last weekend. The publicity that was gained, despite the criticism that it created, is likely to, I think, increase the number of people who are like, oh, I didn't know you could go out there and tour the Star and might see some of these players. Yeah, sure, I'll go pay $40.
Did you feel like a zoo animal when those people
I've often felt like a zoo animal, and sometimes out there I feel like a zoo animal.
What animal do you think you most what animal do you identify as?
I think a laughing hyena right now might be apropos.
All right.
You saw the dust up after the game, right?
What's that?
Trayvon Diggs came out of the locker room in full uniform and confronted Mike Leslie, my WFAA Channel 8 colleague, after the game tonight. Before the media was let in the locker room, he came out and took issue with something Mike Leslie had tweeted and had a rather interesting interaction with a media member. That's a really bad look for the Cowboys football team.
I mean, can you share the tweet? What did Mike?
Let's do our musical interlude, and then I'll see what I can scare up.
All right. Mike Hamilton from Rogue Media Network. Please play the music. All right. I wish you could scare up some ribs or something for me right now. I'm a little hungry. Did not quite get the sustenance I needed tonight. And Ed, after my high school team won, my alma mater won, and then, of course, the team we cover could not get it done in the Bay Area. They teased us with a decent first half, and then it was gone. It was gone quickly, wasn't it? It was 10-6. And then first drive, it's funny, like I feel like Mike McCarthy, his response, Ed, to Jerry calling him out, saying maybe they have some bad concepts or bad play, and he said, "Well, no, I'll look at it, but I don't think that's the case." Boy, Mike came out there tonight and said, "We want the ball. Give us the ball."
He's been doing that every week because he knows he can't get play from behind and he can't trust his defense. So that's become his usual strategy now, something he almost never did the last 3 years when they won 12 games 3 years in a row. I did find the tweet, and it's a video of the pass play from Brock Purdy to George Kittle where he takes it down inside about the 2 or 3 yard line, and then he scores on the next play. And Mike Leslie tweeted that video, and on top of it said, "What is Trayvon Diggs doing on this play?" And then he said, "Trayvon came out of the locker room to approach me about this tweet. Said, I don't know football, and I can't do what he does. He and I are in agreement about that." He didn't offer an answer as to what he was doing on the play, however. And when he was walking off back toward the locker room, Mike Leslie said something about, "I'm still open to having you answer my question." And he said something about his man parts, his genitals. D's.
Your delivery there was very,
and ended shortly thereafter.
Yeah. It was very Carson-like how you just set that up at the end. You had a very Carson-like. I like that. I saw it reminded me of Johnny there. That's interesting. Cowboys showing some fight post game. What I'm wondering is how quickly do you get on your phone, or how do you even see that quickly to be out there dealing with the media before they even get in? For people that don't know how this works, of course, Jerry comes out usually and visits with the media, but after like a 5 or 10 minute cool down period, the media all gets to go into the locker room. So for him to come out there, this was brought to his attention in a hurry. And so,
doesn't he have more important things to concern himself with at this point?
Yeah, you would think. I mean, this would not be the first thing on his radar after the game. But again, this is where this team is. I mean, they constantly have distractions, some caused by their owner. Apparently, the tours bother some ex-players at least. This is a weird thing. Ed, this is a team seemingly going nowhere. And as I often joke, the fake comeback was on. Okay, and I said it to who I was watching the game with, which was my family. And I just said, okay, here they come. It's 27-10, and they come racing back, and they have a legit, you can tell when these things happen, it surprises the announcing crew. Like, they're like, oh my gosh, the Cowboys, it's like 3.5 minutes. They had like 3 whole minutes.
Well, they blew 2 coverages on CeeDee Lamb, and Dak Prescott threw him 2 touchdown passes wide open.
Yeah.
Then they gave up a field goal. But, I think the overriding thing here is the truest thing that Jerry Jones has said in 30 years of me covering him is that Dak Prescott this season is going to have to do more with less, and instead he's done nothing with less. I think back to 2 years ago when they went out there for the playoff game and lost, that they only had two guys on offense who were capable of making a big play who would cause the defense to fear anybody, and that's CeeDee Lamb and Tony Pollard. They obviously lost Pollard at halftime, before halftime. And so how do you go out there 2 years later with even less and think you're going to win? It just doesn't make any sense at all, the whole approach. The roster isn't built for success this year. And I don't think Jerry, with the trade deadline coming up, is going to invest in this coaching staff, and he's not going to invest in this roster. And he'll probably say, what we're going to do in terms of trade is we're going to get Micah Parsons back, and we're going to get Deron Bland on the field for the first time. We're going to get DeMarcus Lawrence back, and we're going to get Kalen Carson back, and that'll be like trading for 4 players, getting those guys back. But offensively, I just don't understand why, other than the offensive line being a point of suspicion, I just don't understand why they're so bad on offense and why they can't score the way they did before. Obviously, some of it is the defense isn't creating turnovers. They're not scoring on defense. They're not creating short fields or extra possessions. And then you have the whole mystery of what is Dak Prescott doing? Like, he came into this league as a player who was very protective of the football and understood its importance and didn't jeopardize it very often. And now, for the second time in 3 years, he's among the league leaders in interceptions. He's one from matching his season total from last year. And 4 of the 8 interceptions he's thrown have been where he's targeting CeeDee Lamb. Half of his interceptions have been trying to get the ball to CeeDee Lamb. Jerry Jones isn't paying these two guys $95 billion to do this.
No, and let's stay on Dak for a little bit here. First interception, he tries to throw it deep, and he underthrows the ball because, now again, he had pressure in his face. That right. Did happen. Okay, so
Aaron Steele got beat by Nick Bosa. Bosa hits Dak, can't really step into the throw. Correct. So if you can't step into the deep throw, you don't throw it, especially when there's 2 defenders down the field.
So he underthrows that one, but at least that works more like a punt. Okay, it's not great, but it's at midfield, and you send it down there. I thought the second one.
Oh, it's far worse.
The second one was awful, and I think you made the point on Twitter. Yeah, it would be nice. It does seem like CD doesn't always, on those bad underthrown or those bad interceptions, CD doesn't maybe fight for it like other.
Well, he waves his hand that he's open, and so then Dak throws him the ball, and he does nothing. If he's not going to catch it, he does nothing to try to defend it. He did the same thing in the end zone against the Lions, and arguably against the Steelers.
It's a good thing you're not in San Francisco or whatever that town is, Levi Stadium outside of town, Santa Clara, because he would hear this somehow and come after you for saying he's not trying. That was a weird play. And again, the Cowboys at that point are down 13-10. San Fran, within like 2 or 3 minutes, has gone down to start the third quarter. Boom, boom, boom. They move it down the field quickly and score, and the Cowboys need to respond at that. And yet they throw the interception, and then quickly after that, they're down 20-10. So, that was a huge turning point in that game, because you go from, okay, is this about to be kind of a battle back and forth? You got to, at worst, you punt the ball away and try to kind of hang in the game, and he throws.
Dak's got to show better judgment and situational awareness, right? As a 9-year quarterback, you got to realize, hey, we're only down 3. It's early in the third quarter. I don't have to make this throw. I can just eat it, throw it on the ground, and kick the ball away. We don't have to make this play. But they obviously don't trust their defense, and understandably so. But you can't be mentally pressured into making those kinds of mistakes that really flip the game and make it impossible for you to compete the rest of the way.
I thought our old friend Troy Aikman, who's been on this podcast, made some great points about the receivers a few days ago and their route running. I also thought Troy was a little bit throwing Dak a bone there, or a lifeline, kind of like, hey, these guys are not running routes for him. Obviously, the Cowboys aren't going to go. I mean, although Jerry said the guy makes good points. The guy, he knows what he's talking about.
He's not just trying to bash the Cowboys.
Jerry's like, I think he's making some pretty good points there. But yeah, at some point, you're right. You got to make better decisions. And if, as you're saying, the defense is sorely, and Collinsworth made the point, they're doing more 6-man lines. And they had their moments, but again, this is a third-string running back, right? 24 came back in late.
He's good, though. Jordan Mason's a good player. I mean, he's second in the NFL in rushing, and he leads the NFL.
You're
talking about Guerrero. You're talking about Guerrero.
The other guy's killing him. The other guy's killing him in the run game. Yeah. And then one of them had to be brought back, right? I mean, they called a holding penalty over there. So, again, it was Dak is, again, it's like, not only is he not taking over and doing whatever he needs to do to try to help, try to carry his team, as we've seen him do before, and we saw Tony before him have to do with some inferior talent at times. And he, again, if you think about it, Tony used to take LaRon Robinson and Miles Austin and people who probably wouldn't have been stars or wouldn't have been that great elsewhere, and he would elevate those guys. And Dak's really not elevating anybody. In fact, the yardage that came in CD's night, all of that came during sort of the desperate comeback. I call it the fake comeback. And then, Ed, while we're on this point, let's look at that one drive, though, where they actually seemingly had a shot. It's 3 minutes left. They're down 30-24. He almost throws a third interception. I mean, I guess that's the CD. Yeah, first down.
Fred Warner probably got his hand on the ball and prevented another interception on the first
Lenore, yeah, you're right. By tipping that, he may have knocked it down. So then you're second down and you get flushed out of the pocket. You throw the ball out of bounds. I mean, there's really no one in that route, right? You go over there. Ferguson's like already out of bounds. So that's a nothing play. Third down, you go deep. And in my mind, even in that moment, I thought, golly, it's 3rd and 10. You desperately need
get the first down.
Even if you get 5 yards or 6 yards, then you have 4th and manageable. You're going deep. You're going downfield. And he did throw a good ball.
And then Cavante Turpin reminded you of why he's a punt returner and a kick returner first and a receiver second or third to drop the ball.
Yeah, ball goes off his face mask. Okay. And again, he's not like a big target, right? He's not. And then on the 4th down with the whole game and maybe the season on the line, you roll out. So you take everybody else out of I mean, like when he rolled right, CD's not even really in the play anymore. So CD was lined up left and on the left side, and he throws it to Brooks.
Jalen Brooks, yeah.
And Brooks is bracketed for some reason. Like I'm like, I guess they're going to take Brooks out of this play. And I guess you could make an argument that the guy arrived a little early, but their feet kind of got mixed up, and he falls down. But I mean, that's really, with the game on the line, that's what you got. I mean,
that goes to my point about the roster and the players that Dak has at his disposal now are worse than when he went out there 2 years ago when they got beat in the playoff game.
Yeah.
And I know Brandon Cooks is the regular number 2 receiver, and he'll be back soon. But, I mean, does he make that big of a difference? He hadn't at any point in the season before he got injured.
No, and it doesn't help, by the way, when they put those PFF rankings and all your people are like 120 out of 130 players or whatever. Mozzie on defense, did you see his?
119 out of 119 among nose tackles. Did you see Mozzie Smith make a play tonight? I don't remember.
No. Now, Ed, on the running game, they did give Dalvin Cook. They brought him up. He gets 6 carries for 12 yards.
This is the most upsetting part of the game to me.
Okay.
You know why?
Why?
Because I think there's a massive conspiracy going on here. The coaches did not want Zeke Elliott back. The front office, Jerry and Steven, wanted Zeke back. And so tonight Zeke was going to have to be put down as an inactive player in all likelihood if Dalvin Cook was finally going to play. They had finally called him up, elevated him from the practice squad. And he and Zeke are both running 29-year-old running backs who don't play special teams. And so in all likelihood, Zeke was going to have to be inactive, which would have upset Jerry. I think Jerry would have strongly opposed that. In fact, on Friday, Stephen Jones said on the radio that McCarthy and Brian Schottenheimer, the offensive coordinator, have been talking to the ownership and the front office about giving Dalvin Cook his chance. It's been 7 weeks. And so finally tonight he was going to get his chance. And what happens? Rico Dowdle somehow shows up and is suddenly sick.
He got sick on the way to the game. Yeah.
But he's out early in pregame. He's signing autographs. He doesn't look sick. It looked like a way for them to avoid making Ezekiel Elliott inactive, and instead he starts the game.
Mm-hmm.
So,
ceremonial starter. Well,
he did score a touchdown early on. They gave him the lead.
Yeah. So Cowboys find a way. Ed, it is time, and golly, and boy, there are some people, by the way, out there. I'm always impressed on Twitter, and one guy finally just blocked, which is fine. I don't usually block people at all, but when they get really, I have a higher threshold. Well, you actually will hang in there with them, but but some guy has just gone, he thinks we are so tough on Dak. And that Dak, it's everybody else's fault but Dak. But, Ed, you love these kind of numbers. And they put this up on NBC, and I'm sure you saw it. This is the first time you've had a quarterback have 3 multiple interception games consecutively since 1992. I'm sure Troy really appreciated them throwing that up there. It said Troy Aikman.
He won the Super Bowl that year. I doubt he minds.
They did it.
And Dak probably doesn't mind being mentioned in the same breath with Troy Aikman, no matter the reference.
Yeah. So, it's kind of amazing. All that when you think about it. But again, there are people that just, and again, Ed, I don't think there's any 2 people in the media who were like more supportive of Dak. Like, we've had him on this show, by the way. He's been on Tuesday with us. In those early days, I think we accounted for how remarkable he is, even during the game tonight on NBC. What are they talking about? Walter Payton. They fall down 27-10. They're like, Walter Payton, Man of the Year. He helped one of his colleagues, or, the head of the Cowboys PR, Tad Carper, get screened, and Tad just had surgery on his cancer. We're still, there's no debate that Dak's not a great dude. But if you are the highest paid guy in the NFL, you have a bigger target on you than ever, and he's not getting the job done. Of course, they have nobody else to go to. You're not going to make a change or anything, but he's playing poorly. And Ed, if you're trying to decide what's the biggest reason the Cowboys are, I guess some people would say, well, Micah. But when you hear Micah and DeMarcus, and people say, well, they don't have them, and so that's a huge reason they're losing.
I think that's true.
Were they playing that great with those 2 guys?
No, New Orleans blew them out, and they had both those guys. And New Orleans blew them out 44-19 at home, and they scored 9 straight times. So, no, they weren't playing great either. But at the same time, again, it was a defense in transition from Dan Quinn to Mike Zimmer's, style of defense. So I allow for some of that. But, yeah, I think they would definitely make a difference. The reason, Dak has not been able to use the parts that he has, an inferior roster, and as you said, elevate them on any kind of consistent basis. He's played poorly almost every week.
Yeah. And I think when he was asked how he'd played through 6 games, he said, no, I've been average. And again, he didn't try to say he was great or anything. But
no, he said average, and he said that's not acceptable, and I'm expecting to do better, and I'm preparing to do better. And tonight, he didn't do better.
No. And so when he says it's going to get better and all that, I think right now it's falling on deaf ears from Cowboys fans. And Ed, I want to we're gonna bring Stretch in here. I did want to say real quick, thank you, Marable Homes. Ed, we're in the process of, this is going to be the video of all videos, and we're going to be able to show people some of these Marable Homes. It's really, and this is, I think I've made this point to you before, Ed. Clint Murkison, the former Cowboys owner, one of his sons, Robert, was instrumental in Blake getting going in the home building business, and now Lake Highlands, Preston Hollow, even into Highland Park, some of these custom built luxury homes, he's doing incredible ones. We love having him be a part of the Doomsday podcast at marablehomes.com. Check it out. But I'm telling you, we're going to be presenting some shots and some interiors, exteriors, and then Ed, I think this will probably, especially with all the gigs you've added and WFAA and all, if this will cause you to look at a third home soon. I would just settle for you moving closer to me.
Wouldn't that be lovely?
I don't know, Bridlewood or wherever these far-flung places that you are. I would like you to move closer to Dallas, but anyway, for now, we'll just continue to get together like this. It is time for our stretch plays, and I mean, I don't think it's going to go great for Dak tonight. I don't think it'll be good for the coaches, and we'll talk, but we'll ask him about, were there some good schemes, bad plays, bad concepts, all of those things. Obviously, it is now time to talk to former Cowboy scout and coach Glenn Stretch Smith. Okay, it is Stretch Plays. There he is, Glenn Stretch Smith, former Cowboy scout and coach, and you see him on WFAA, and he's got a good light right there, lighting him up. And Stretch, you've kind of been all over. Well, you've been driving all over tonight. You're back at your studio, and I mean, another tough loss for the Cowboys. You know, I kind of call it sometimes these like fake comebacks. They come racing back, but Stretch, tonight, I mean, what put them in that spot was, the second interception was probably the worst. Before we kind of talk about Dak's overall performance tonight, can you walk me through both interceptions, what you saw? Obviously, he was under pressure on that first throw. Some would say, well, then don't make that throw. Walk me through Dak's evening.
Well, I think, number one, you're dealing with a quarterback who is starting to feel the obligation of knowing he's the highest paid player in the NFL, and he's not getting it done. That's one. Two, he was under some duress. Yes, San Francisco's got a really good defensive line and arguably one of the best pass rushers in the business in Bosa. And I saw what he saw on the first deep ball. The problem is when you can't set your feet, the ball doesn't come out with any real it's got no zip on it. I mean, the power in throwing the football starts from the ground up and with your feet, and then being able to drive your hips and push the nose of the football. I mean, he jumped up in the air to throw the ball. So the ball just sat in the air forever, and the safety comes over the top and makes the pick. I think more than that was the second interception, where Dallas got absolutely nothing going in the second half. Your defense made a decent stop before the half. They have to come right back out and play. San Francisco goes down and scores. You go 3 and out. And so the second pick is a really, really bad pick, because in that situation, he floats a little lollipop ball into the boundary. And the thing that I think frustrates me is that the receiver in that situation, when you see the ball underthrown, you gotta turn into a defensive back. You got to go up and make the play. You got to knock the football away. You're compounding a problem. The quarterback throwing the ball is one problem, and then CD, you got to go up and you got to get that ball out. You got to do something to help you get away from that situation. And it was, it would have been the second straight third 3-and-out scenario. At least you could have punted the football and made them go the distance. They didn't do that. And so, I mean, both interceptions are bad interceptions. Both interceptions are very poor reads. And he really should have had a third interception, which was on that last possession on first down. Warner's just sitting there reading his eyes. All he's got to do is pluck the football because he's staring down the inside dig. So I don't know necessarily what's going on with the quarterback right now. I'm just telling you that it feels like that he's starting to feel the heat of being the guy, and he's pressing into making plays, and it's not doing him any justice right now.
Well, he's been the guy for a lot of years, and so, but to your point, he has an even bigger target on him because he's the highest paid player in the game now. You can talk about his weapons, you could talk about the offensive line, but Stretch, from a run game standpoint, they bring Dalvin Cook finally up. Rico Dowdle comes down with an illness, which again is very weird. Calvin Watkins now reporting that he had over 102 fever. Of course, he was out there signing autographs. He looked fine, but he didn't play. And so they start Zeke. They give Dalvin about 6 carries. What did you think about what they tried? I mean, they didn't accomplish much in the run game, but like at least they were in the game. At halftime, they're up 10-6. What did you think about just the overall game plan, what they were trying to get accomplished?
Well, I mean, they did run the football okay in that first half. I mean, Zeke had, I think, an 11-yard run but before he stuck the ball in the end zone for the touchdown. I thought you saw Cooper Beebe got some nice second-level blocks. I mean, that's the first time I've seen him get up to the second level, and that's what you want to see. I mean, I didn't think the run game was just all that awful. I liked that at least they were trying to run the football. That's the only way that this quarterback is going to have any success. I don't care what anybody says. If you think you're going to make a living just running drop back passes with Dak Prescott, it's not going to happen. He has to play action, and you got to boot and waggle off of it. And the only way to do that is establish a rushing game. And I thought at least they put a few runs in that were successful. And like I said, I thought Cooper Beebe played well. I thought you saw a couple of really good things out of the younger offensive linemen, him and Guyton both. I mean, I think either one of them will really give up. I thought Zach Martin didn't have a good night, and Steele got beat by Bosa, but that's going to happen. At the end of the day, you got good enough play out of your offensive line, and you got some run game so that you should have been able to run a little more play action. And for whatever reason, Dallas got away from that, and I get it. When you get outscored quickly and your defense can't get off the field, it's hard. But the flip side of that is you put your defense in that position by going 3 straight 3-and-outs. And the game became, let me tell you something. On 4th and 1, if Kyle Shanahan just runs the football on that 4th and 1 when they were up, what are they up? They were up 17, I believe, at the time. If he just runs the ball on 4th and 1, the football game is way over. But instead, he decides to run a naked boot, and Dallas stops him, and they let Dallas right back in the football game. Which, I mean, you can say it was a gimme fake comeback if you want to. I thought they did a decent job there. Zimmer's defense got him a stop there, and they got a critical stop at the end of the game and gave the offense an opportunity to go win the game, and they couldn't do it. And
couldn't get a yard. No,
that's winning and losing, and that's how razor thin it is in the NFL.
Well, they didn't even get a yard. I wanted to ask you real quick about that sequence. We already talked about first down. Second down, he goes out of the pocket, and the guy's already at the plays have busted because the receiver's out of bounds already. I think it was Ferguson over there. Third down play, he actually throws a really nice ball. You could argue that Turpin, a small receiver like that ball went off his face mask. But, I mean, at that point, Stretch, in my mind, yeah, probably maybe you should have caught the ball, but it's like, is that the best play? I mean, like you've got to get a first down. You've got time. Time's fine. Time's not a big worry there, but you've got to get the first down, and then you go on a deep ball. He can't make the play, and then you come back on fourth down, and he rolls out. CD was on the other side, wasn't really even in the play, and tries to fit it in there to Jalen. I don't know if that was, pass interference or not. They got kind of, but I mean, what do you think of that overall, that series of those offensive plays?
The first down throw is a bad throw. It should have been picked. The second down throw, you're right. He got a little pressure and had to throw it away. He makes a decent throw on third down. Turpin can't make the play for him, and their size receiver that you talk about. Then they run a deep over where he's bracketed. Yeah, they got tangled up with their feet. Was it a PI? I mean, it's kind of it was close there, but I thought overall it was really a horse shit 4-down series. It really was. I mean, there was plenty of time. They had their timeout. They were trying to run. They could have run the football. They could have done a lot of different things. And so, yeah. It was a frustrating set of downs altogether, and it was a frustrating group of play calls. It wasn't like they tried to run any kind of bunch set where they got the pick, where they were able to throw the touchdown when they got the nice rub to CD. They didn't do any of that. So we could sit here and guess the play calling all we want to, but it wasn't a very good series. And
no,
again, your defense gets a critical stop, gives you a chance to go down and go ahead in the football game, and Dallas wasn't able to do it.
All right. And then on the defensive side, last thing I'll ask you, because it sounds like, boy, you haven't said F for Dak, but it certainly sounds like it was kind of heading in that direction.
F, put the F down. You right, F. Put it down, F. There you go.
F for the quarterback. Defense continues to be severely undermanned. Got a little bit of help back because they got Kendricks back. The linebacker who almost went to San Francisco, by the way, and then decided to come to the Cowboys. What'd you make of the overall performance of the defense?
I mean, again, now remember, you're playing with guys in a defensive end that are really your third guy. I mean, Golston is weak. They're really your third guys. I thought Golston played his ass off. I thought there were a couple of those guys that really, for guys that normally would only get time in a preseason game, or maybe 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 special team snaps, I thought they played okay. I thought Dallas got exposed at the safety position because I don't believe that, Wilson, I like Donovan Wilson. He is a good box safety. He's a good special teams guy. He's not a cover guy. Well, when Zimmer was blitzing, that was the first thing that Shanahan did after seeing that right before the halftime. He ran the shallow cross. Well, Donovan can't run with Kittle on a shallow cross. And they come out in the second half, and that's one of the first things they do is run that shallow cross. They hit him again for a big 50-yard play. And I thought, other than the fact that Dallas is just a little undermanned at the safety position, I think they did that bad. And I didn't think what Zimmer did schematically was all that bad because he was trying to spy Purdy with Overshown, trying to keep his speed guy in that situation. I just don't know what you do if you have to blitz, which they needed to blitz because they don't have their frontline pass rushers out there. You got to run some blitz, which means you're going to have to play some man coverage, which means you're going to get exposed, and that's what happened. I did think that, and Dallas fans aren't going to want to hear this, but on that rub route, on that last touchdown to Kittle, I thought that was they threw the flag initially. I thought that was the right call. I mean, the corner, Awarie, he's up playing man coverage. He butts the receiver. He butts the Z receiver and loses him inside. And when he butts him and moves him inside, they got the rub with Wilson, and it was a touchdown. People aren't going to want to hear that, but they picked that flag up, and I thought that was the right call. When the defensive back reroutes the receiver and you get and they got the pick there, yes, it's a razor thin call, but I thought they got the call right. And so in that situation. Would I have liked to seen Donovan a little more up on the line and maybe, maybe kill a little more in man coverage? Yeah, but if you do that, then they're going to throw the slant right behind. So you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. But overall, the defense with the duress they were under, other than the fact that they got a little out-schemed, they didn't play give-up football tonight. They didn't. They got you a couple of stops. The problem is they're not getting any turnovers. And, Dallas is -8 or 9, whatever it is, in the turnover. And that costs you the football game. But I keep saying this. They got you a critical stop at the end of the game. You couldn't do anything with it. And they're the ones that are depleted from a personnel standpoint.
Yeah, and it doesn't look like Jerry's going to do any kind of trade or anything to really help this team. So help's not on the way, and this thing could really get away from them as they Atlanta's playing pretty well. You're gonna run into the Eagles, the Texans, the Commanders. I mean, this does not get any easier. Stretch, thank you, and check. Now that we're through taping, if you'll check on Mike Leslie. Make sure he's okay. Diggs is not someone who loves contact, but he will come after a reporter apparently. All right.
Yeah, evidently he will. He's a tough guy to a guy running a camera and a microphone. So, yeah, I'll make sure and get with him.
Yep, Leslie has skipped a few leg days, it appears. But Stretch, thank you, buddy, and have a great evening. Sleep fast, buddy.
Sorry to bother you tonight, Mosley.
All right, Ed. I want to be brief here because about 5 a.m. you'll be up and headed in to do some good old WFAA. I noticed they call it something else, Ed, for the Mavericks games now. Channel 29.
Well, they created a new channel just for the Mavericks.
It's called like FWAA or something. Yeah, they've gotten a little tricky with the time. Since they have that channel, Ed, and I think they've had it, but they're really ramping it up with all their Mav stuff. I want you to suggest to who's our buddy that you're on with on those mornings, and
Mark Iscook.
I like that guy. I really do. He seems like a nice guy. I want you to suggest on that 29, them showing the Doomsday Podcast. I mean, that is.
I don't know that he has that much authority, as nice a guy as he is.
That is great content. Well, now that Mike Leslie has gotten under the skin of the Cowboys and Trayvon Diggs, let's ask him to do something. Trahan seems like a very powerful guy there, so let's keep him in mind as well. Now, Ed, now feel free if there's any other, but I do want to kind of get you out. But before I do that, I wanted to bring up what Cowboys are about to face because. Yep. Now Atlanta looks pretty good. They're 5-3. Cowboys have to face an Eagles team that's looking good right now. At what are they? 6-2, 5-2.
They won today.
Yeah,
Washington won today,
and then they have the Commanders. I mean, things don't ever ease up until Thanksgiving when the Giants show up on the scene. But Ed, and don't forget about the Texans on Monday Night Football. That's November 21st, I believe. Ed, there's a decent chance the Cowboys could go into that game 3-6, and at that point, it's a complete lost season. That's just kind of where this thing is headed right now. Did you see any silver linings? Did you see anything that made you think? I guess the return of possibly, you get back Duran, Bland, and Micah at some point, and much later DeMarcus. But right now, Ed, there's not a lot to be optimistic about.
Well, I think I would expect that I'm surprised Duran Bland's not back already. When he fractured his foot, it was a 6 to 10 week injury. He's at 9 weeks now. But, 2 weeks ago when they got ready to play the Lions, he had 2 full practices, and the Cowboys made him available at the podium, indicating that he was going to play that week against the Lions. Had some soreness with the foot. They backed off, which is common practice in these situations. So I'd be surprised if he doesn't play next week when they go to Atlanta for a noon kickoff. They're going to need him against Kirk Cousins. And I think Micah has a good chance of being back by then. DeMarcus Lawrence is on IR. I believe his first game back can be the Eagles game on the 10th. So, Yeah, I mean, I think that's the only real reason to wonder whether the Cowboys can win enough games in the division to be a factor, and try to get one of the last playoff berths. Is, can these injuries, when they're overcome and the players finally return, can they make a big enough difference on defense that they can play more complementary football, and the defense can take some of the burden off an offense that just can't obviously withstand the being expected to win games on its own.
Yeah. And now we're back to, if they get on one of these slides, we'll be back talking about coaching changes. Could it happen during the season? Most likely not. And then it'll be a slow march toward who the next head coach is. And then, Ed, we will have plenty of time to talk about that. I will just say, I think Bill Belichick, with his media schedule, coaching will almost be, he'll kind of be more comfortable to get back to that. I mean, he is on everything. There's a special Peyton show. Then he'll do the Monday Night Football. Then he's on another show. Then he does some other. I mean, like this man is extremely busy in the media, and there's nothing I've heard from him that would preclude him from ending up as the head coach of the Cowboys. It may not happen, but I'm just saying. I certainly think he would be open to at least visiting with Jerry about that at some point. If this thing continues to go wrong.
Jerry had said, even though it was probably offensive to Mike McCarthy in the past offseason, I think at the Senior Bowl, he said that he could work with Bill. He could work with Belichick. We're friends. It wouldn't be a problem. He's maybe the greatest coach in the history of the game, which is probably true. And I think another guy, and now whether those two guys could resolve their obvious differences well enough to create a partnership that would be mutually beneficial remains to be seen. There would have to be some give and take on that in some significant areas. I think another person that the Cowboys probably should have considered this past offseason, and certainly next offseason if they make a change, is Mike Vrabel. I mean, what's Mike Vrabel known for? He's known for having tough, physical, run-oriented, defensive teams that overachieve. Everything the Cowboys are not is what he's all about. So I think he fits the profile of somebody who might be successful here should Jerry decide to make a change. And obviously, he wants to consider making a change, or he would have signed McCarthy to an extension, and he wouldn't have, forced all these other coaches on his staff to work the final year of their contracts. So Jerry invited this speculation. He knew what he was doing. He's done it many times before with Jason Garrett. He knew every time when the coach does not have a contract, he's working the final year of his deal. He knows when the team loses or doesn't play well, he's going to be asked about making a coaching change, and he probably doesn't mind being in that position.
All right. And later episodes, we'll go over like the possible running backs the Cowboys can draft in the first or second round. It is amazing, isn't it? Teams can take a running back in like the fourth round. Like, tell me the guy's name again tonight. That was the
Guerendo. Isaac Guerendo. He had one of the fastest 40 times at the combine for running backs.
He's unbelievable. Yeah,
from Louisville, I believe. He's from Louisville. Yeah,
Louisville, right.
Down, or they would have scored again. Remember, that's the second time in the brief times he's played that he could have scored at the end of a game, but he laid down to run the clock out.
Yeah. Did you figure out why they picked up that OPI down there?
Very questionable, I thought. McCarthy was upset about that after the game. Didn't want to get fined, obviously, for criticizing the officiating, but definitely made it clear that he disagreed with that call, that they picked up those flags, because it seemed clearly an offensive pass interference that led to George Kittle's touchdown. But Kittle was as dominant as any player was in this game. He was dominant. I think he had 168 yards and a touchdown. Wasn't as bad as last year when he wore the T-shirt that said F Dallas and had 3 touchdowns. But it was bad enough to get Donovan Wilson benched for Wanye Thomas late in the game. So, it was just another disastrous performance by a Cowboys team that, gets behind big and then is exceptional at erasing the deficit to the point where while they don't win the game, they make it look better than it was.
All right. And Dak ends up with how many interceptions now has he had against San Francisco? 5 in the last 2 times they've played. And then for his career, if you count the playoffs, he would have, I believe, 8. He's had 3 interceptions in those playoff games combined. So
in the 4 games they've played since 2021, including the playoffs, he's 0-4. The Cowboys have averaged 15.7 points a game, 226 yards a game, and he has 5 touchdowns and 8 picks.
Okay, so pretty good.
Yeah, really solid.
Pretty strong work.
Issue an apology to, like Mike Leslie needs to issue one to Trayvon Diggs. We need to apologize to Dak for arguing that he was largely responsible for this defeat.
Yes, we apologize to all our listeners. I may unblock whoever that Tim. You're out there. You're fine. I just sometimes get a little sensitive late at night. Ed, have a great broadcast. Will be folks can watch on WFAA. He does a lot of reports during the week. He writes columns. I mean, my gosh, this is they're getting their money's worth from you. And that'll be what time is that tomorrow morning? Is that
around 6:30 a.m. Around 6:30 a.m. I'll be in my suit and stand there with Mark.
I'll set that alarm and we'll be ready for that.
Appreciate
thank you. You sounded great tonight, and I appreciate it. And we'll be back with you after the Atlanta game, which Ed, you'll be happy to know is a noon start. So
unbelievable.
By about 3:30 or 4, you and I will be doing one of these, and that'll work out beautifully for everyone involved, including our own Mike Hamilton. For Mike and for the great Ed Werder, I am Glenn Stretch Smith. I am Matt Mosley. Good night to all.
We are Rogue Media Sports.